Good morning, guys. I'm just gonna wait for some people to get in the stream. I know I'm a tad late. Our stat account is having some difficulties. I literally was unable to share the stream link, and I don't know. It just looks like something wasn't loading right or something of the sorts. Hmm. So what we do have today is we have Powell speaking, and we have unemployment claims as well that came out right at 8:30. So that's gonna be 8:30 EST, so it already came out about 45 minutes ago, which you can see we had the following move. So if we put 7:30 on the chart, you can see that was right here, traded lower, traded higher, and now expanding the broadening formation to the downside currently. If we draw it out, you can see this on the overnight futures. Took out the overnight highs. Now we are expanding through the overnight lows. And we got pivot machine gun on the hourly to come back through. Currently looking to fill this fair value gap, and then you're going to have pivot target sitting here, pivot target sitting here, and pivot targets pretty much all the way down into these levels there. And yes, so since we had Powell speaking, if you go into the alerts channel, you are going to see the link for the conference, and that's going to be starting right at 9:10. So it's going to be starting during the trading day. Good morning, the video posted your best yet. Well, glad to hear it. I pretty much just went over every single entry in the simplest sense, which is just that imbalance under that 50%. And all right, so one of these setups that we're going to be watching today, or at least I'm watching personally, is WFC. So you're going to see it went outside day, and we know threes or outside bars are going to show aggression, and we also had high volume, so we know everyone's kind of looking at it and trying to get in it. And if we go on the weekly chart, you're going to see potential outside week. Go on to the monthly chart, you're going to see potential outside month. And when it comes to financials, we want to see these become stronger if the market's actually going to try and put in a bottom or at least a longer term low, because financials are going to be the first ones normally to be strong off those lows. Anyways, but we're going to be looking for that 3-2. So we'd be looking for an entry or a trigger to the upside over yesterday's highs. And then we have weekly magnitude at 44.80. So we would want to trade the 44.5 calls or the 45 calls. That's the furthest strike I would recommend. And since we're looking at WFC, that also means you can look at something like BAC. And if you go to BAC, you're going to see this one has actually inside day. It would be 212 reversal with a small daily magnitude, but you still have the same type of idea when it comes to weekly magnitude. So can also trade that one up into last week's highs and then potentially swing for last month's highs if we're going to go outside months back to the upside. So BAC also one to watch, and that also means you could watch GS or any of those other bank stocks that are at least a little bit more pricey. There's also MS, which is Morgan Stanley, and you're going to see very similar setups across the board, except these ones were a little bit stronger and didn't take out last month's lows, which is also noteworthy. Maria is referring to the video that I posted last night. If you just go to my YouTube channel that we're currently streamed on, you should be able to find it there. And then we also have things that are continuing for their larger time frame magnitude. So looking at something like Tesla, I'm sure what there's a moving average there. Looking at something like Tesla, you're going to see if we draw from right to left, we're going to have lower low to these lows up here. You could also be drawing it back into this area if you'd like, doesn't matter. And if we go right to left on the highs, you're going to see we had higher highs. So this is going to be your broadening formation on Tesla. Coming back through the range, we have monthly time frame continuity, weekly time frame continuity, and weekly magnitude. And it would be daily continuation if you didn't swing from this trade from the hammered day that hit its magnitude and closed strong. You'd have to be looking for continuation entries today. And if we go to lower time frame, when looking for continuation entries on the next day, what I'd like to do, and I've shown this before, is we want to mark out our pivots. So I'd be marking out this pivot, and I'd be marking out this pivot here. So if these get taken out and we start to get reversals back to the upside with time frame continuity, of course, then we can now target yesterday's highs as a continuation entry. And looking at the overnight futures today, what I would be expecting just from what we're looking at here, if we go to a 12-hour, we have 12-hour magnitude lower. We go to a daily chart, and we also have potential outside day again. So since we went outside day yesterday, we know for sure this is a broadening formation because on a lower time frame, outside bars are going to look like a broadening formation, right? So currently we are having prices reach back into that broadening formation, and depending on how aggressive we are, we do have magnitude on the daily to come back to this low. And although I wouldn't prefer to see that, it's possible. And again, if we go to a 12-hour, as long as we're below this 12-hour open and that 12-hour trigger, we're going to have magnitude to come down to this low here. Or at least, at the very least, you could look to kind of fill in this fair value gap in this area here if you'd like. But currently the 12-hour points down with the daily magnitude also pointing down, but we have, you can see conflict here. So since we have conflict, normally these things aren't going to hit magnitude. We're going to have to kind of play it by ear, and since we do have that news today, we will be a little bit more patient, at least just coming into the open. And you can already see it's trying to hammer back up. And we will see if we're able to come back above these previous lows. If we can do that, then we drew out that broadening formation earlier on this time frame. If we can pop back into that, then we could see it potentially trade back into the overnight highs right away. But again, kind of just in the air. I'm not going to be too aggressive in either direction in the morning. Magnitude, if you go to the education channel in the Discord, you're going to be able to find it there. And if you go into education, there is Sarah's some of Sarah's information and stuff. But if you scroll up or go to pin messages, you're going to see this. This tells you where your magnitude or your target is. So on a 212, your target's always that 2's high, vice versa on the downside. 312, it's always that 3's high. 322, it's always that 3's high. Rev Strat 122, people love those. It's always going to be that first candle's high out of the 4 candle pattern, etc., etc. We just had the news. Well, let's see. And you can see it was just shooter hour down on the futures. And we just closed that fair value gap. We got that next pivot target sitting just below here. So BAC is also actionable, and didn't mention it, but here's your broad information from that weekly time frame. It'd be these lows. See if you go on a 15-minute time frame. Started as a very small try, expansion, test the lows. Now we want to see it come back to those highs ideally. Same with WFC. It's going to have that same broad information off the weekly time frame. Just like JPM had a long time ago when we were trading. We were looking for it off of these lows to expand higher. And that one will actually have weekly reversal potentially to the upside. Looks like one of the strongest ones. I apologize if you hear me like sniffing or anything. I still have that cold that I'm getting over. I'm like right at the butt end of it. So I'm gonna try and mute my mic as much as possible, but sometimes I'm just unable to. Thoughts on AMD? Let's see it. So AMD, I actually did look at this morning. So it does have a hammer day. It was weaker yesterday. You're going to have potential outside week, which we're not hitting. Definitely not. Go on the monthly. We're still red on the month. So you need to get back above that monthly open for us to want anything, because so long as we're also below last month's low and red on the month, we're magnitude down here. So that hammer day, also, although it looks very nice, it's below the monthly open, and it's against time frame continuity and against the higher time frame magnitude. So when looking at this, I would almost prefer to see TTO, where we reach into the daily magnitude, which if we go on the day, you see 2 up, 2 down, 2 up. This is your daily magnitude. I'd rather see it reach into that and then trade lower after taking out the highs. And you can see what that would do when it comes to broadening formations, be making your lower highs or higher highs and then looking for lower lows, right? And see all that continuity, how it's not in agreement. That's going to be trading in conflict, and we don't suggest doing that. MRK looks good, so we talk about it all the time. Take your trading range. You have your highs here, your lows here. You get stuck inside that. You look for the new broadening formation because you're trading inside a mother bar. And you're going to see, if you draw it out, you get your lower lows. You also get your higher highs. And you could draw it like this if you'd like to. Now, hammer day. The only thing that, or actually it is 2 down and green on the week. So yeah, you do have outside week magnitude. It's perfect. Would be looking for rev strat day magnitude there, and then weekly magnitude as your target too. So it'd be something like this. Like such. I don't dislike that one. How the options on Mark? I never traded. Options are not too shabby. The in the money ones, the 86s, are 6% spread, and the out of the money ones are about 20% spread. And the goal for me today is to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more controlled with my executions, especially if I do end up trading any futures today. And I would suggest you guys having the same goals, especially since we have the news and everything going on today. It doesn't make sense to rush into things too aggressively, because if you get a bad entry and then news comes against you and you nail a low trying to take a continuation, you're going to be a very, very sad camper. Unhappy camper. And we can see if we go to the futures. So we did have some fair value gaps and breaks of structure, but I took this 325er down. I just did not get to hold it because I was trying to figure out all this stream nonsense and I was sized a little bit too big for my liking, so only got a couple points on it. But that was right before that news came out, or before the news started coming out, 9:10. MPC, never traded that ticker in my life. Let's see. Oh, it's an oil company. So looking at XLE, since we took out last week's lows and look to be trying to reject it, you're going to be against time frame continuity, but you will have broad information on the lower time frame to try and trade back through, looking something like this. So if it goes daily reversal up, you can target that magnitude up there if you'd like. The only thing is these are still going to be a little weaker. You're going to see red on the week still, and you're going to see also red on the month still. So that's just something to note. If we go to MPC, you're going to see inside on the month, and you're also going to see what did it inside on the week. So you don't really have much magnitude in the higher time frames. Yep, and that's one thing to mention. If you haven't already completed the survey in VIP announcements, we would suggest going in or scrolling up, and there's a lot of questions. So some people may have missed the ones that are at the top, but I would highly suggest going and completing all those questions for your sake. Futures chat, just scalp in the 15-second chart. They're doing some nuts trades today. Trading off those little broad informations. We got about 2 minutes for the open here. Oh, 5-second chart? Shit. All right, here's your open. So we're getting a nice sell right off the open. Continuing into that continuity we were looking at before. So Wells Fargo trying to go red to green, still inside day under that daily trigger. I believe MRK is going to be similar. And it looks like MPC is trying to do what you guys are looking for with that daily reversal. I'm not going to be touching that because it's in disagreement with those higher time frames. So the ES futures, if you're on a 15-second time frame, it does look like we might get a box set up if we're able to kind of run those highs that were put in just before the open. If you go into like a 5-minute time frame on these bank stocks, that will give you potential early entry if you're looking for that. Like JPM, we talked about that one being a little bit stronger than the rest of the banks. That one has a hammer fiver. Looks like futures are still going to try and go for more lows off the oneer. So JPM closed that with that 5-minute hammer, so that becomes actionable if you want to try and take it back up. And like we talked about with marking out those pivot targets, you can see we almost reached and took out that one. We only got this pivot target here, but still consider that a TTO of the previous day's buyers. And now we have potential reversal back up with highs up here to target. The only thing that I would really want to see would be more firming up on the futures. And you can see a lot of things took out previous highs, like Tesla took out those previous highs yesterday. It's daily magnitude, the top of the Browning formation, and currently it's rejecting, right? So we want to see those things kind of firm up a little bit more because ES is still just sitting right at the lows. We don't have any actual signal set up on that one back in the opposite direction. So nothing to really write home about just yet. But JPM, that would be your aggressive entry long if that's something you guys are looking for. So there's your trigger up on JPM. Be careful of those spreads. They're a little bit wide. And when the spreads are wide, sometimes you have to go to like monthly expirations where the spreads are going to tighten up a bit. And remember, so if you're taking a hammer entry, we want to keep our risk kind of tight. So I would just use like a 50% stop in 50% of that candle, which can draw it out like this. It'd be right about 115 psych. And it looks like futures are trying to pop up a little bit here. Tesla's starting to firm up a little bit as well. Trying to go fiver up. All right, so now that JPM has a nice bright green candle coming up, I would move your stop even tighter. Just move it to the low of that 5 minute we entered on, because we know it's going to be a higher risk trade and we know it's going to be volatile off the open. So it should just go instantly, especially once we start seeing this. There's your Momo. So we got new 5 minute continuity, and that's going to be new tenors. So first 10 minutes of the day has finished trading. Like ES is pulling back in just a tad. New highs on JPM, putting that 10 minute reversal in force. ES coming back to high day very aggressively. There's first target, JPM, yesterday's highs. And you can see other bank stocks also going fivers to the upside off that new continuity. And remember, JPM, we knew was one of the stronger ones. So what are we going to next target on JPM? We're going to target weekly, that weekly trigger. And reason it was stronger again is because it held last week's lows. So this is going to be our T2, which triggers that weekly reversal in force. And we also have WFC coming up to potentially do daily 3-2 to the upside. That's another potential long you can take with banks. The WFC is taking out yesterday's highs now. And one thing to note with WFC, you can take the trigger right away on the daily, but I wouldn't suggest it. I would actually suggest waiting for a different entry if you did not take JPM or WFC off the fibers, because this is T1 and this is where we would expect some type of TTO, right? Because that still acts as liquidity on the lower time frame. But on JPM, I would suggest taking profits into the highs and then letting your runners run again. So we're going to go to ATR trailing stop. And if you hit it on like a 1 or 2 minute, that's where you can start trailing runners. And I would make sure your stop goes to your entry on the stock price. You can see Tesla goes and hits one of those internal pivots on a lower time frame. We didn't quite reach where I was ideally going to want to see it do it, but a great example of what we want to see. Takes liquidity, gives you 5-minute actionable signal to the upside, now takes out those equal highs as yesterday's previous day's highs. So here is new 15-minute continuity. Remember, in the morning, you're going to have your decoupling, and new 15ers are normally going to try and come back in the opposite direction, because decoupling, it gives the sellers a chance to try and take the market down if it went up, and vice versa, right? So it does not mean that everything's going to just crash, although some days it will. Just means take your profit, move your stops up, and if it were to come back in, just don't make sure you're not going to be losing a ton of your profit from taking really aggressive morning entries like the 5-minute hammer on JPM there. And on the futures, we also have a big 1-minute fair value gap. If you're looking for a reason to get long, you could try and partake in that. It's also retesting those overnight lows on futures. What was I looking for on WFC? Well, it took out previous liquidity, has a big ol' outside day that's bullish, has potential weekly magnitude, and the whole XLF sector has been a bit stronger. AMD gonna do, let's see. AMD did hit its daily magnitude. We will see what it decides to do after that. And again, just because AMD is red on continuity doesn't mean it can't change back to green continuity. It just means that this entry off the daily is not a high probability one that we'd really want to focus on, right? And JPM, potential inside fiver add for those looking for that. And it looks like WFC TTO'd on a small time frame and now retriggering to the upside. And JPM inside fiver add means once this fiver closes, you have 212 continuation. Yep, so on a 2-minute chart, you can see TTO on WFC off of the previous day highs, and now hammer in force. You go on a 3-minute chart, same exact thing. 4-minute chart just goes outside bar. And you can see those outside bars on the 4-minute, that forms with actionable signals on the lower time frame. So people always ask how to trade outside bars. That's how you do it. If something's trying to go outside day, you go down to like a 5-minute to hourly chart and trade that reversal instead. And then you target the outside day, you know? So ES going back into the highs, 15 or 2-2 reversal on SPY. If you're looking to try and get long that, that's where you would do it. WFC JPM into the highs. So ES actually looks like it's trying to reject that trigger now. That doesn't look quite as bad. Looking at it, we now have liquidity in that fair value gap, so we'll see if we get a broadening formation on SPY. I'll pull that up quickly here. And AMD might give inside fiver down for those that are trying to short against or into that higher time frame. But so SPY, if we go into a 1-minute chart, you can see broadening formation and the fair value gap that we all love to see. So we have liquidity in the form of the low of that broadening formation on the 1-minute chart. And we would potentially have fair value gap down here. So we could try and take entries off the lows of this broadening formation like this. It does want to give us a little TTO on that small time frame. So it's just going one or back up. So JPM getting close to that secondary target of 117.45 if you took hammer 5 or actionable signal this morning as your aggressive entry. There's new high day ES, or actually just under the highs, that's my bad. And WFC, if you took that retrigger of the day after TTO on that smaller time frame, that one's going into the highs as well. There's high day ES, and it looks like, oof, there's some type of order sitting above those highs. Still looks, on the cumulative delta, it still looks pretty good though. Meta crazy strong. Good to know. Tesla inside on the fiver. That one still has weekly magnitude higher, I believe, as well. Yep. So Tesla still has just a little bit of weekly magnitude. If this inside fiver triggers, you could do it kind of as a smaller scalp trade from inside fiver to 288.48. Or D20 acting as a magnet. What is that? Those highs, yeah. That would be our next target if we're able to take out overnight highs. Come on, ES, just do it. There's a new high day ES. Love to see it. And you can see that's going to be expando of that current try from this little consolidation here. And there's your inside fiver up Tesla if you're looking to do that. With that, keep your risk tight. Use like a 50% of that 5 minute or use that 5 minute open right here. Don't let scalps kill your risk reward if you're trying to do something like that. JPM into the 117.45 target and WFC into the highs. So we're back into the 5 minute for value gap from the opening session. Something to note on ES. So take your profit at your pivot targets. JPM, great example. WFC, if it were to fall back in, that's something I would suggest trading in the, not trading in the opposite way, taking a stop out on, but we will be patient on that. So Tesla, I would stop out of that if you're trying to scalp it. And we got shooter fiver forming on the ES. And SPY also filled the gap to yesterday's close. Trying to take the winners back up on the futures. So what I like on WFC is you can see JPM pulled back, WFC actually trading back to the highs. So maybe we're able to see some strength come into those weaker ones. WFC into high day, good to see. I'm up 20% on the at the monies that I got on that. See if ES is going to reject this 5-minute fair value gap or what they're trying to do here. We had a little initial reaction on the smaller time frames. We had a little fair value gaps, but we didn't get any shifts in structure, so we're still bullish on the ES, although it has that 5-minute fair value gap that I'm looking at. We just got our new fivers. We do have that shooter that formed on NASDAQ. We don't really quite have a shooter on SPY or anything, so it still looks pretty good. And there's WFC popped into the highs. Love to see it. And remember, if you take something and you're like, well, I'm not happy with that profit, and you don't want to wait for the pivot target, selling into those highs, you're going to get a much better return on your investment than if you were to wait for a reversal against you. We still have all that news and stuff today. So we did take fivers down on the futures. That is something to note. Although it's against continuity and whatnot, so I'm not too worried. But we have it in force. We haven't hit magnitude on NQ yet. And WFC still into the highs, JPM still into the highs. Good to see financials being strong. So even on this pullback, cumulative delta is not budging. So I'm thinking it's going to be a pullback. Doesn't mean let green go red, just means that even though we're pulling back, I think we can still continue higher. An AMD, fiver shooter down after taking out liquidity. So did what we were looking for. We'll see if it tries to reject. If the market does end up turning around, this would probably end up being weaker. But too soon to say. What you will see is if you go on like higher time frames, we're inside on the 30, go on the 15er, potentially has a 15er 322. So fiver hit magnitude on AMD for anyone that was trying to catch a short on that. You see SPY reaching into liquidity and that fair value gap we talked about, bottom of the try. 2-2 reversal, takes out all these pivot targets, that hits magnitude. WFC back to high day. So there's your pullback retracement to the bottom, and it's trying to come off the bottom of that try on the oneer. You can see that here. So now reversal at the bottom of the try, target top of the try. Simple. So AMD short hits its magnitude, doesn't trigger higher time frame downside, which would be 15-minute trigger, which would be 30-minute trigger, which we're inside 30, right? So just didn't have any of the continuity to continue. WFC also going back to the highs, JPM still just sitting at its pivot target. WFC I'm almost 70% on, not bad. And remember, we talked about using your ATR trailing stop. If you're on a 2-minute on JPM, you can see not doing anything against you. Go on like a 2-minute WFC. Just 2 minutes way to the upside, holding the trail stop for us. One thing to note is we potentially have SMT divergence if ES takes high day and NQ does not, although I'm not too worried about that. Just something to note there. And remember, when you have these little scalp trades, best to take your profit into highs. Although we're targeting the top of this tribe, taking a partial somewhere in the middle between your final target and your entry is always going to result in having some more profit, because you have a higher probability of prices reaching here than you do of reaching here, right? So you're going to get that first take profit more than once, or more often than not than your second take profit, right? Those hammer oneers can rip us higher. You can see hammer oneer right here, actionable signal on the 1-minute time frame with 5-minute trigger and broadening formation target up there. She is. It's order block on the 69-minute chart. That's great. It looks like we're starting another broadening formation in this little range here. So remember, take your range high to low. And you can see new broadening formation starts like this. Really tiny consolidation, little range. And you can see it reaches into that little bottom of the try on the winner. WFC just look at that big volume spike. So when you get a really aggressive candle like that into the highs, I'd love to take profit on those. So I'm going to take a partial. Because that will give you a spike in the IV of the contract as well. Plus, we know those volume spikes also can hint that there's potential orders sitting up there, right? $15-minute hammer forming on AMD. So if the short idea doesn't work and we still have strength, then why not just try and take the 15 or long? So there's one or hammer back to the upside on ES off the bottom of that try here. Still kind of just stuck in this little range here. See if those, yeah, so fiver didn't want to take it up. 15-minute potentially TTO'd. So we got new 15ers. See what it wants to do. There's 15er hammer up AMD. We want to see ES kind of get some Momo off these lows here. Very, very sideways. There's a little volume spike. And there she goes. You can see volume spike precedes it. Right on that candle right here, that's your volume spike. And that also coincides with this low that was put in on the volume spike there. There goes your 15er hammers on AMD. There's high day. That there is why we use the lower time frames. Love to see the volume spike. And then look at all this really aggressive high volumes pouring in. Beautiful. So something to note, we talked about the potential divergence in price between ES and NQ. Currently we have that, but I want to see what price action gives us because it's pretty aggressive to the upside. So I think we could potentially just push through it. But who knows? Just take your profit at your pivot target. ES went into high day. If you took the 1 minute fair value gap from the futures chat, first profit target is always that high day, that previous highs. TradingView does have cumulative delta. I could not tell you which indicator it is, though. It's something you'd have to Google. And AMD, love to see it. Just what a beauty. Quick little 20% around there. We want to see that aggression continue. We want to see NQ reach over that previous day's or previous high day. Beautiful. Come on, NQ, do it. You like that? So if we go to SPY, back on the 1 minute, what do we got? We got try within try. We got hammer one or up, doesn't take out that low, so no stop losses. We got bottom of the try here, also had a hammer one or up. And now what do we got? We got top of the try. And NQ just about to take out and pop the highs. And it looks like she did it. That's exactly what we want. And JPM, another pop into the highs after taking out that 117.45 target and holding on to our ATR trailing stop. Same with WFC with runners. I was not bullish on AMD this morning. So the reason I switched to bullish is because we tried to bring it down off the fivers and it held those previous highs and then put in an inside bar hammer 15er with time frame continuity on the daily and bright green bar on the daily. And we have the indices now pointing upwards and giving us that strong bias. Because coming into the open, I didn't have the strongest bias upward, but when we had this aggressive move here, then we had the run of this low and strong reaction there. Then we now know we're trying to set up TTO to trade higher, which is what we were talking about and what we got. Cumulative delta, honestly, has been one of the most useful indicators I think I've ever used in my life, just with how I'm using it. Yeah. Because that whole entire pullback here, I'll show you guys the delta quickly. All right, so you can see this whole entire pullback on the SPY. Look at the cumulative delta. It's just holding it and it's actually trying to go up, right? And then you can see we take that liquidity that I was talking about and then look at more aggressive buying. And we get this pullback here, goes sideways. So they're not selling into the pullback. And then what do? They add into it right there. Boom. And then that's where that momentum came from. It's beautiful. So let's see if ES is able to crack yesterday's highs. That's going to be our next area of interest, right about 398.50 psych. WFC about to hit that 44.80 target. And for anyone in the stream asking me questions, I do not have the stream chat pulled up. Tag me in premium chat. So you can see AMD reached into 82 psych, starting to pull back a little bit here. Would not let that one go red, move your stops up to break even. Especially coming off of high day on the indices, just makes sense, right? Or you could treat this as an order block if you wanted to, and you could use a trend-based type of stop, but that's going to be a little bit more advanced and depends on your position sizing. But I would want to expect prices to bounce somewhere in this area here, but obviously there's no guarantee. So do you want to guarantee profit, or do you want to not guarantee profit is the question. And there is selling on the cumulative delta finally today, so that is something to note. And for those that are wondering what that looks like, you can see big green bars. We have barely any red, and then look at that. Boom, they're all taking profit. So something to note. They're doing it right under yesterday's highs on SPY. We are trying to reach into the SPY 2-minute fair value gap. We'll see if they want to try and buy it back up from there. And AMD just hit that 5-minute fair value gap just at those previous highs. So we'll see if that wants to support prices or not. And on WFC, bump your stops up, hard stop. You want to have a hard stop 44.40 on the stock price. And that's going to be hard stop 44.40 because of our ATR trailing stop now trailed up to 44.42. What time frame? So cumulative delta, I just have it on the 1-minute chart since that's what all my futures charts are always set to on NinjaTrader. If I was a betting man, I would really want to see those previous high days taken out on SPY. I'm very surprised we actually didn't do that on the push up initially. So AMD is flat for me on the options contract on my runners, so it makes sense to close break even if you want to protect your capital. And WFC just about to reach in that 44.80. That's our T1 off the daily, so that's weekly magnitude as well. Take profit at pivot targets, 44.80. And although we didn't run through that pivot target, I'm going to say target hits within penny. And when you get really close to hitting those pivot targets, just makes sense. Take your profit, right? And doesn't mean you have to fully exit the position. We still have pivot targets higher, and we still have this bigger broadening formation, and we have that outside month magnitude, right? So just makes sense to take a partial and let the price tell you what it's going to do next. Is cumulative delta enough to um I would personally say, like, I've really only been like kind of mentioning it and paying attention to it, like, more what's the word, I've only been really focused on cumulative delta for the past, like, I say, week or two. I used to use it a little bit more previously, but I kind of figured out a new strategy just with like the past 6 months of having it on my charts and kind of just having it underneath and looking at the correlations. But I would say if it's a tool that you think is useful, I've been kind of posting all of my thought process with it. If you think that's useful with what it's been showing the past week or so, uh, switching over to a platform that actually has it could be something that would look good for you. So WFC, there's actually into the pivot target for you guys, 44.80. Still an inside day for SPY. We have so much time left in the day, and we have news. I would not be trying to bet on SPY staying inside day. I feel like that's a really stupid bet because we're sitting right under the highs. We don't really have much aggression to the downside. We did have some profit taking right under yesterday's highs, but you can already see we're already trying to pop back up. And if we have this big accumulation in the overnight session and we're going to go and pop overnight highs, we could literally expand up into like 40-20, 40-60, 40-50 if we get if we get enough aggression above the 4,000 psych level up there. So, going to play it by ear. Because unlike yesterday, if we go and look at the ES futures, so unlike yesterday, where you can see we take out yesterday's lows and we get shifts in structure, aggressive moves up, fills in, holds the structure, breaks higher, etc., etc. Now we're looking at today's action. You can see overnight session consolidates. They trap buyers up here. Then they run all these lows, try and trap some longs, trying to get in here. And then anyone that tried to long to get back into those overnight highs, we run those people aggressively out of their positions, take out a lot of longs from yesterday, and then we just trade back higher, right? And we're doing so in a pretty aggressive manner, leaving fair value gaps up here and down here. So as of right now, everything leans to us probably just running that 4,000 level. WFC just rocketing. Beautiful. And this is why you got to trade with those higher time frame magnitudes in mind, because now we have monthly magnitude. Boom, 4632. If it wants to do it today, it totally can, because remember, consolidates aggressively, creates an expansion of the range, aggressively creates an expansion of this range, just a little bit on the downside. Now aggressively just coming back through all these stop losses. And there's hammers back to the upside on SPY. The cumulative delta actually isn't following. That's something to note. So SPY just about to pop yesterday's highs. We'll see. So SPY taking out yesterday's highs, NQ not even taking out high day, so you do have a little divergence there. Nothing super noteworthy. We still have bullish structure, etc., etc. We got time frame continuity, so unless you're trying to preemptively short high a day, it doesn't make sense to really do much up here. Unless you're being aggressive. And if you're being aggressive, then you can try and short the divergence, which would be you would short NQ with a stop at the highs, trading as if this divergence is going to play out. But normally with a divergence in price, this is more ICT, but you're going to have the lower high form here, and then you'd want to see a shift in structure below these lows in order to get an entry short, right? Or you can really be aggressive and just short the divergence, but I wouldn't suggest it, at least not right now. So it looks like AMD is indeed trying to be supported in that area. So maybe we get 3125ers back up. Who knows? So there's SPY taking off over high day. Tons of different entries in here. Hopefully just with the broad informations you guys are able to do something with it, but not too shabby. So now that SPY's taken out yesterday's highs, we want to see ES do this, or not ES, NQ do the same. And we're still under the overnight highs. That's notable. If NQ and ES are both able to take out yesterday's highs, then we will have a nice, hopefully a nice little pop. What a beauty WFC is. And now that WFC is really getting aggressive, you can go to smaller time frames and use that trailing stop instead to reduce your risk even more. AMD going 5-minute 3-2 up from that area we wanted to see support prices. NQ starting to get some Momo to the upside as well. What a beauty. Everything working pretty nice today, eh? And hopefully, I don't know, try to be a little bit better on today's stream for you guys from the feedback that we got yesterday. So I would love to hear if you guys have anything to say about that. AMD is just beauty. 3-2 aggression. Love to see it. Couldn't get in, no pullback. That's bullshit, Maria. You know that. What do you mean, no pullback? We had broadening formation here. We had broadening formation right on the 1 minute. Like, this is classic market maker buy model stuff. Like, look at that. You got accumulation, accumulation, breaks the range, gives another entry into the 1 minute fair value gap that we were talking about, straight into the highs. So we got 4 hour hammer trying to be put in for us. We'll see. Um, definitely hitting some liquidity from the overnight session on the futures. So that is something to note. And that's right about 3,990. We got also 4,000 psych sitting just above prices. So a lot of different things up here. So WFC at 75 psych. Very nice. All right. Let's see. Everything going into the highs. ES about to run those overnight highs. Just about a pip. Not pip. Just about a point below. AMD about to hit. If you did try and take that bounce trade off of here, it's about to hit that first target because remember, uptrending markets, your first target's always going to be this high here. And up everything goes. There's new high day ES, and that completes our broadening formation from the overnight session. So we're going to go and show you that quickly. So overnight session, there's a lot of crap on this chart. You can see broadening formation, expands the range down, now trading into the highs, hitting top of the try, which is always going to be that pivot right there. And if we go to NQ, you're going to see still a little weaker, hasn't taken out those highs, but same exact thing from the overnight session. There's your broadening formation. And since it's an uptrending market, we expect this high to get taken out more often than not. And AMD, there's your first pivot target as well. Overall, a pretty light day to trade, not bad. Now, if we can get some momentum coming over these overnight highs, then when looking at the setups, this is what we want to see. So when looking at futures and gauging, so this was our bias yesterday if you're in the futures chat with me trading, but when looking at these setups, so we had accumulation. This is going to be secondary accumulation. And then once we can break out of that, where are we going to target? We're going to target liquidity in the form of these highs in this fair value gap that was left, right? And when you have, again, so if you're on my stream with T-Mac, we talked about just ICT stuff on Sunday. What do we have? We got this big consolidation or big accumulation area potentially. We want to see pops above that. We want to see it hold, and then we want to see a small little secondary one and then rip higher, right? So if we can do that, then we can have potential outside months on the futures again from taking out last month's low and rejecting it. But don't want to speak too soon. We're going to trade the price as it happens. And right now we're at 9:45. We got 30 more minutes till we get a 30-minute flip. Oh, that's not stream friendly. Sorry. Can't let you in on that one, guys. Fuck class. Yeah. I know, I hate that. I'm so happy to be out of college. All right, AMD, let's see what we can do. Pop those highs. ES trading back above those overnight highs. Again, we want acceptance above those highs, and we can expand this try much higher because we have time frame continuity. We know the broadening formation is going to expand in the direction of continuity. So long as we can get some aggression above those highs, we should have a really big up day with those entries we got this morning. I used to have nightmares I'd go back to school. That's so funny. When I was younger, I went to a private school, so I was that guy. But whenever I'd walk into that school, I'd get like intense like stomach pains. Like like I would just feel sick. And I've always just disliked school, so on the same page as y'all. If AMD is able to do that, yes, we have full time frame continuity. And I will add that so this is the script I use by Board Rider. But just add that to your chart, it'll tell you right there. So now we are full time frame continuity on AMD. And you could see we didn't have to be the first one in, because although that daily trigger may have worked or would have worked if you'd taken it, it just wasn't a high probability setup. But once we started changing continuity and gave those actionable signals back up, that makes it higher probability, right? So the new 15ers currently not doing too much on the futures, just a little rejection of the highs. Again, we still just want to see acceptance above those highs, and we'll continue an uptrend day. And there's AMD, nice pop into the highs. Love to see it. And remember, so AMD, where are we going to actually target on this for the day trade if you are still in it off of that bounce off, or you entered again off of that 325er? We have broadening formation. And where's our top of the try? Well, our pivot target to give the top of the try is going to be at 83.64, and then the real top of the try is about 86, depending on when we hit it. And AMD hit an 82.50 psych. We get a pullback. What level are you looking for? I wouldn't be trying to take any more entries right now, personally. If you have longs from down here on SPY, trail your profits, or at least take profits up in here and then let your trades work, right? Because as long as we don't revisit this entry down here, that's still going to be a valid trade in my book. The only thing that I would be a little bit cognizant or worried about is we are an uptrending market, so that's good. We had this move higher, took out, made new highs. That's what we expect to happen, right? Now we have this huge imbalance down here with liquidity, and we still have news today, so we can have still a very volatile day, right? So understanding that, if we were to pull back, I would want to see pull back into this area, which is a very wide pullback. But you can see how that also aligns with the broadening formation from the morning, right? So that's what I would if I was looking to have another entry into longs, I would want this entry. And the second, or the less favorable entry in my opinion, would be an entry in this fair value gap in this area. So looking at SPY, I would say the 97 psych area is going to be important, and the ideal entry would be like 95, but 95.50, anywhere under there, for a continued uptrend. And the 95.50 is better because it's lower, and because it's lower, your risk rewards can be better. So if you're just taking it with no confirmation, your risk reward looks something like this, right? So that's a 1 to 4. Now, if you're taking this one, you can see your risk reward would end up something like this, which is a 1 to 2. So this 1 to 2, you'd have to win it 25% of the time in order to break even, right? That 1 to 4, you'd only have to win it like 13% of the time or something. So makes a lot more sense. Rug pull eminent, we'll see. Currently, I have my cumulative delta pulled up on MNQ, which isn't going to give us the best read. Let's see. I'll pull it up on ES and give you guys what we're looking at. But I really don't think we're going to get rug pull, at least not unless we can reach up into that 4,000 psych. Then once we hit that and get more towards the top of the try on ES, potentially. But currently, wouldn't see it. And the cumulative delta actually has been dropping on ES while we've traded higher, so that does give us a little hint at potentially if we make new high a day, we may have some rejections from there. But obviously, not everything's 100%. We'll see, though. ATR trailing stop, I use the one by Sai-hoon. And my settings are as follows here. And a little trick that I love to do on this now is turn off. So like if the time frame continuity is up, maybe I might code the script up for you guys. I think it'd be very useful. But if time frame continuity is up, turn off the red trail and turn off the red background. Now, whenever it's green, you know that you can take an entry into, but you're taking it into a current trend, right? And whenever it's not green, that's gonna be your TTO, right? So that's a good way to look at it if you're looking for the trailing stop. I do not use it as a way to um, enter positions. I only use it as a way to get out of positions. So that's something to note. There's new high day and QES. Pretty big volume on ES coming in at that 4,000 level we were talking about. So now that we've hit 4,000, potentially can start pulling back here if it wants to. No problemo. And you can see WFC, if you're on the 1 minute trail, it's already stopped you out. With a winner like this, though, I wouldn't consider that one stopped out. I would say just kind of let that one go. If the futures are going to be able to get back over these highs, then we do have a lot more upside on the day, in my opinion, because we have that weekly magnitude on the futures still. So if you did stop out because of that, I apologize. Did not call that though. Yep, someone just posted the screenshot of my settings there. All right, let's see. ES, it's trying to get above that 4,000 psych, trying to get above those overnight highs. Just need the buyers to step in and get us out because this is accumulation in my book. And if this consolidation can break, then we can really get her going today. An NQ right into the top of the broadening formation. That is textbook as can be, just like yesterday. So here's top of the try NQ, up she goes. Here's ES, popping the top of the try, up she goes. Big old cumulative delta into the highs too. So they're buying it, buying it, buying it. Doesn't mean it's not top of the try though. So if you have runners and you're looking for a reason to take profit, selling into the highs is always going to give you the best return because of that IV spike. Look at how, geez. It's like JPM might try to make another move higher as well. Full time frame continuity on the SPY. Magnitude higher, 3-2 in force, expanding the range, and weekly magnitude up to 4071. Great day. Got some runners left going for the hike. Nicely done. 17% on the day. Sorry, I'm being quiet. There's not too much to talk about. Everything's just following to the upside as it should. Trail your stops. Take profit at your pivot targets. And you can see ES took out yesterday's highs, got the nice break above, and little accumulation continuation. Love to see it. Sadly, did not get to the gym today, which is all that's been on my mind now. Okay. You can see right at that 145 psych, WFC just stalling out a little bit. JPM just still ripping to the upside. Love to see that. Sadly, didn't get that one in the alerts. AMD just tuning its way to the upside as well. Not too shabby. Here's a pullback. Let's talk delta. They're just taking profits again. Just because they're taking profits doesn't mean the market has to turn on a dime, though. And that's why I like it more as a like, where's the trend going? Because in the morning, you can have that big move down like we had, but in that big consolidation down, we had pops in delta. And then even when we had, I'll pull it up in just a second. All right. So when looking at the morning session, and the reason I was kind of bullish in this consolidation, if we go and look at the cumulative delta, gosh, sorry, NinjaTrader is a little bit finicky sometimes. All right. So if we go and look at the cumulative delta, you can see big sell in the morning, right? And then we go sideways. Look at what happens in this consolidation as it's going sideways. See this big pullback right here? There's still a lot of buyers, and this is a small little red candle, and then boom, we pop out of the consolidation and go. So they're loading into positions while these candles were doing nothing, right? So that's what kind of hinted me at, hey, try to look for upside, and that's why we took that JPM. And then you can see trades up, trades up, trades up, and then we kind of drift higher on the cumulative delta all throughout this consolidation, which tells me it's going to be a bullish one, and then boom, big pop out of it, right? And then you can see they finally start taking some profits, and they start taking profits even on the way up, and then we got another ramp of buying on the cumulative delta up into here. So they're just taking profits again. It's going sideways, right? So it's not it's not going to tell you every single thing, but it's a great thing for using it in the morning, especially when you got really high aggressive volume. Going into AMD 85s for tomorrow. All right. You can see we were looking at some of these levels earlier. This was that 4-hour order block fair value gap that we were talking about there, which is what we bounced off of. But besides the point, two in its way up. And for anyone that wants to follow me in this, so there's some unusual flow. There's some people I follow on Twitter that just post unusual flow. They have pretty good uh, hit rate, so I just felt like following it in my larger investment account. But AR 10/21/45 calls, I got filled 10 of those contracts at 135 a piece, and you're gonna see that chart here. Go to month, still inside on the month, but we hit the daily, and you're gonna see it takes out pivot target below here. And now we have pivot machine gun up into this stuff. We have a little gap fill above, etc. So I just want to see, I just followed into it with a decent, not really that big of size, but it has a lot of time on it. So it's not going to be too bad if it doesn't work out. And we're also kind of where all these different gaps in price are. So normally these gaps in price will kind of tell you where potential support areas can be. So for example, here's another one. Want to see if we're going to go and get that rev strat. You see the 2-day magnitude. Rev strat would put us all the way up at 70 or 40.61, which would be awesome. And even though we don't have monthly magnitude, weekly magnitude next week, if it wants to go outside week, can trade up to 43.28. And then doing that brings us back up into the monthly area up there, right? And then if we can go 2 up on the month, we still have 322 magnitude to go and take out those highs up at 48, which would put those $3 in the money. So looking at a daily chart, if we zoom out, it's still trending higher. Here's your big old broadening formation. And if it can 2 up on the month, then we could see a pretty nice return on those, right? And they got until end of next month. Do you use cumulative delta only for futures? Yes. And the indicator is on NinjaTrader. It's built into their order flow software package thing. So that's where I use it from. I'm not 100% sure if you can get it on Thinkorswim. I don't believe so. It's a more, uh, it's an advanced like order flow tool. So you have to go through like a dedicated futures broker in order to get it, from my knowledge at least. And I guess TradingView doesn't have it either, at least from what I've been told from people in here today. Yeah, 4020 would be my next target up there for ES, yes. The one thing I want to note though is remember 4300, what happened on ES at 4300. I just have some really big trust issues because of that. We literally just bounced off of 430350 like 6 times, right? So expecting us to run it instantly may not be the best course of action if we're going to reject, right? Who knows? But that's going to be my target. Once we reach closer to there, really just tighten up your stops, and I want to see us pop through it, ideally, because we have the structure to reverse and go all the way up into like the 4160s area, because we have these lows that we haven't retested yet around 4120, and then you can see 4150 and 4180, 4160 up there. So would love to see it trade up there. Fully expect us 4300 and drop like a rock. If you want my longer term bias, at least from the current price action and what I'm seeing. So if you were on the stream with Sunday night with T Mac and I noted the low or the high of this candle right here as the bottom of that weekly fair value gap, which gave me the bullish bias yesterday. If you watched my video that I posted yesterday night, and we see currently we had displacement, we had closes above this previous high here with the fair value gap. So our target technically would be to go and take out this, which you go to a monthly chart. Where's our monthly magnitude? Right there, right? So it all lines up for us to really reach higher. And although that is what the price chart's telling me right now, my, what's the word for it? My brain doesn't like that idea, but definitely points upwards, right? It's more of an emotional thing. I don't want to see it go and bottom right here. I want to see the market tank even more, but who's to say that market does what I want? So if you wanted to swing, the pretty much what we would be looking at would be, we had this whole consolidation. We want to see this close as a big up day ideally, and you could risk these lows and target like this if you really wanted to go for it. But instead, I'm just in that AR call, so see if AR wants to do anything for us. Cumulative delta volume by lone sumth on TradingView. Let's see if it works. These colors are so god dang ugly. I don't get why people do that. Body. So it looks like indeed the TradingView indicator is at least relatively close to being what I'm seeing on my delta indicator. Close, but not, it's not quite there. It's close, it's not quite there, because looking at what when we popped into this high, the cumulative delta actually traded much below these lows. On my indicator on this one, it did not, but I'd say it would be a free alternative. Close enough, yeah. For AR, I would say this low 36.87. But normally it's like normally these swings only take about 2 weeks, very at the very most, to work out. So I would just be looking for weekly reversal or two down in green coming into like the 41s, 42s this week. I would say if it's under 20, if it's a 25% loss or more, I would say cut it is what I'm going to do. Just looking at AR in the daily magnitude today, I'd want to see it reach the 39.77. So, wow, AMD is just getting $1.30 in the money if you held and or bought this bounce here. I'm just talking about I'm talking about this moonshot. 4360 was inducement. I literally if you were in the futures chat, I literally posted when we all longed it. Sorry, wasn't on the right charts there. AMD 8364, that's the final target. Selling across the board. Yep, we got 15ers potentially trying to come down. So JPM, that is going to be on the 2-minute trailing stop out of any trailing positions if you are still in that one. WFC also coming off of that 45 psych level I noted about 6 times. We have today every day. WFC bouncing to the penny off of 44.72. Pretty interesting. So, really big trend day coming into lunch. I'm not going to be on lunch, and we do not have lunch stream with T-Mac today, so sorry for you guys for that. But hopefully this morning was good enough for you guys. Anyways, in lunch, we want to see if we're going to have a really big consolidation. And then if it's really aggressive, they'll pop it up, small consolidation, continuation, right? Which currently they're really aggressive, they may just trade through lunch, which we would want to see the consolidation continuation. So you can totally hold some runners if you're trading the ES futures or trading NQ futures, whatever it may be. You want to be long into lunch. If you're already long, then good on you. I would suggest just trying to hold and let the trade work for you. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. And we got, if we do reach lower, then we will have like a 15-minute fair value gap sitting right above those morning highs or right at those morning highs. You also have another one up here. So it's going to be hard to try and pinpoint exactly where that is. So when or if we were to trade any lower, I would say to focus on the market structure or focus on the higher time frames, because we know if we go to SPY, hit the hourly chart, we know if we're going to consolidate, it's going to be an inside bar. And if we're going to continue, it's going to be an inside bar and up, right? Or on the 30-minute chart, if we're going to pull back, it's going to be a 30-minute shooter down. And if we're going to trade back higher, it's going to be some type of 30-minute reversal in the opposite direction, right? So I wouldn't say, or I wouldn't suggest guessing so much. I would suggest kind of letting price tell you what it's going to do. If you're already long from our entries this morning, hold those through lunch, at least some running positions, have some type of stop loss or risk management applied to it, and let the trade win, because big up day like this, they normally close at the highs. And if we're going to close at the highs, then we have magnitude up to 401.55 and then weekly magnitude up to like 406. So we still have more room to the upside. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. And unless you guys have any questions or things that you'd want to ask me before I leave, I'll be ended it right here. So I'll give you guys a minute or so. With futures, why bother holding over lunch? Why not just sell and wait for post-lunch reversal? So when we have these really aggressive trend days, they trade through lunch. So currently, we're just going sideways. We had a volume spike. Maybe they want to try and run these lows, but they normally trade through lunch. So if you have those positions from down there, it makes more sense to just kind of hold them, because if we're just going to run liquidity and then trade higher, then that's going to happen very soon, right? So you could sell here and then try and get an entry here, but unless you're just blindly buying here, there's a chance you miss that entry and then you're left hanging if you're trying to catch that whole daily range. So that's what I would suggest, at least when talking about trying to get the whole range. And I don't really have a good example that I can think of for trading through lunch. Let's see. I know we had a great example of it not too many days ago. It's an overnight session. Oof. Yep. So great example. Nice big up day. And then you could see it goes into the lunch session, just goes completely sideways and then straight up. And you did have, if you took this as a market structure break and a fair value gap entry, risking this low, that was an entry, but you don't always get that entry, right? So this is kind of what I would be expecting if we're just going to grind higher and aim for weekly magnitude. So now we're actually trading under that low. We'll see if it wants to do anything for us. And if you do want to get some, what's the word for it? Get some help on the direction of prices for the rest of the day. I know futures chat's normally all over everything, so that's where I'd suggest going. But I'm going to call it off here and leave you guys with that. Hopefully you guys had a pretty good morning, and hopefully we can have a good Friday. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming or not Friday, but I do plan to be around, so we can hopefully have a good Lotto Friday if we do have some decent setups with magnitude still left over. With this displacement through the low, it looks like we may pull back a little deeper than expected, which essentially just means per value gap down here. Or even lower, there is this one as well. So maybe we get a little pullback a little deeper than expected. But again, I would say just focus on those reversals, the 30s and 60s. And I will be around in the Discord, but I will talk to you guys a different day.